Okay, think about a group that didn't just, enter the global music scene that kind of blew up on it. That's really BLACKPINK, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely.
From their debut under YG Entertainment back in August 2016 with Jisoo, Jennie, Rosé, and Lisa to becoming this massive worldwide thing, their climb felt incredibly fast.
It really did, almost meteoric.
And that U.S. debut, it wasn't just them showing up, it really felt like something shifted culturally.
It certainly did. I mean, they'd already built this huge international fan base with a very specific style, specific sound. So by the time they properly focused on the U.S., people were ready. Anticipation was huge.
Right.
And having big labels like Interscope, Universal, Polydor behind them outside Asia, that definitely set the stage for a major impact.
Okay, so for this deep dive, we're going to zoom right in on a really fascinating point in that journey.
Yeah.
Their appearance on Jimmy Kimmel Live, October 20th, 2020.
Ah, yes.
And they joined him from Seoul remotely, which, that alone says something about their global status right then.
Totally. That appearance, it's a great snapshot of where they were just as their first full album, The Album, very aptly named, was dropping. And it also gives us a look, I think, at how K-pop artists, how they handle the whole American late-night TV circuit.
Exactly. So our mission today really is to dig into some key moments from that Kimmel Show. We want to understand the fan reactions and maybe even pick up a few useful English phrases they used.
That's good.
Plus, touch on some of the insights about K-pop training and just how the group interacts.
Okay, let's do it. Where should we start? The performance.
Let's kick things off there. Oh, man, the Lovesick Girls performance, visually, it was fantastic.
It really was.
They had this super vibrant stage, gave off this cool, retro 50s vibe, neon signs, a diner counter, even an old convertible, just bursting with energy.
Yeah, it was a perfect fit for Lovesick Girls visually. That song itself, it's so high energy right off the album.
Totally catchy.
And the fan reaction online, it was instant, just pure excitement. You saw comments like, the Blinks have been fed. Everywhere. People were just happy to see them perform.
Right. That chorus just gets stuck in your head. It was definitely a treat for fans, especially since, live shows weren't really happening then. A real visual boost.
Definitely.
Okay, now, let's pivot to the interview. Because this is where, the reactions got a bit more mixed, maybe, at least based on some online chatter.
That's true. If you looked around on places like Reddit after this show, you definitely saw some viewers who felt Kimmel's interview style wasn't quite what they hoped for.
How so?
Well, some felt the questions maybe weren't super insightful. And there was some talk about him using a particular Korean phrase repeatedly, kind of like a punchline.
Ah, yeah, I remember that. And it's interesting because at first, him trying to speak Korean, maybe it came across as respectful, but then using it over and over.
It seemed to wear thin for some people. Yeah. But, we also have to think about the format of these U.S. talk shows. The segments are short, right? They're built around ad breaks. And it's pretty common knowledge that questions for big stars are often pre-vetted by their teams.
That's a really key point. So in that light, these appearances are kind of a trade-off, right? Mutually beneficial promotion.
Exactly. BLACKPINK gets massive exposure to a huge American audience, potentially reaching new fans.
Yep.
Crucial.
And for Kimmel, having a group that huge on the show brings in tons of viewers, a really engaged audience.
It's a win-win publicity-wise.
Still, you did see fans expressing some disappointment, feeling like it was maybe a missed chance for a deeper chat, especially with the album just out and everything else they had going on.
Definitely that sentiment was out there.
So let's get into the actual interview moments, because there were definitely some interesting bits.
Absolutely. One of the first things Kimmel asked was about their fame. Like, could they actually leave home without getting mobbed?
Right, the reality of global stardom.
And their answer was pretty revealing. They said they have to make an effort, basically, to be well covered up. Hats, hoodies, trying not to be obvious.
They even joked about dressing kind of manly or tough, sometimes as a disguise.
Yeah, which really gives you a sense of the level of fame they were managing.
Totally. Then they talked about their fandom name, Blink.
Yeah, yes, Blink.
They explained they came up with it right alongside the group name, BLACKPINK. Blink is meant to capture both sides, the pink, more girly side, and the black, more edgy, savage side.
Like in their song, Pretty Savage.
Exactly. It sums up that duality they have.
It's a neat, concise way to put it. Another memorable bit was when Kimmel pointed out that Jisoo doesn't speak quite as much English in interviews.
Yeah, compared to the others.
And Jisoo's response was just, really charming. She shared her favorite English sentence.
That's a pity.
It's a pity, yeah.
And Kimmel immediately connected it to Spanish, que lastima. Same meaning. There's a nice little cross-cultural moment there.
It was. Then the conversation moved to their K-pop training, the academy. Kimmel kind of joked about it, like comparing it to Hogwarts or the X-Men school, you know, where they find talented kids.
Yeah, yeah.
And one member, sort of lightheartedly, said she was excited to get rid of subjects she didn't love, like history and math.
Right.
So she could focus on performance, singing, dancing, languages, including English, obviously.
Which really gives you a glimpse into how focused that K-pop training system is. It's intense.
Very intensive. It highlights a very different path for artists compared to maybe what we're used to seeing in the West.
Definitely. They also talked about Coachella being the first female K-pop group to play there.
Huge deal.
They called it a dream wish, not just for them, but for lots of trainees back in Korea. They used to look up Coachella videos and lineups online when they were trainees.
That really shows you how big Coachella is globally. It's seen as this major milestone, especially for international artists wanting to break into the U.S. market.
For sure. And Lisa mentioned meeting Jaden Smith there, too.
Oh.
And Kimmel, being Kimmel, instantly brought up Will Smith, the Fresh Prince stays.
Of course he did.
And even joked they should cover Parents Just Don't Understand.
That definitely added some levity.
Then there was the album name, The Album. Their explanation was very straightforward.
Very straightforward.
Yeah.
They just said fans had waited so long for a full album.
And then they just called it The Album. Makes sense.
No mystery there. And finally, the Cardi B collaboration. They seemed genuinely excited about that.
Yeah, they said they were big fans, listened to her stuff all the time.
And naturally, Kimmel had to make a reference to WAP.
Yep, he went there.
Which, you know, shows they're tuned into Western pop culture even while they're navigating all this global stuff.
Okay, so let's circle back to some of those English phrases they used. There were some really good practical ones for learners.
Yeah, definitely. Let's break a few down.
Okay, first one. When Lisa was talking about going out, she said, as long as we're well covered up. So as long as we're well covered up basically means if we hide ourselves well or provided we're disguised. Like you could say, we can go to that crowded market as long as we're well covered up.
Good example.
So for everyone listening, try repeating that phrase. As long as we're well covered up.
As long as we're well covered up. It's a useful one for setting a condition. Okay, another one that came up when they talked about school subjects they didn't like.
Yes.
The phrase get rid of, it just means to eliminate something or not have it anymore. Like, I need to get rid of these old clothes.
Right. Okay, listeners, try saying something you'd like to get rid of. Go on, think of something.
Maybe get rid of Monday mornings.
I'd like to get rid of. Junk mail. Get rid of. Okay, got it. Then there was Coachella being a dream wish.
Dream wish. Yeah, that's a nice one. It means a really strong hope, something you aspire to.
Like, visiting Japan is my dream wish. Okay, your turn listening. Share one of your dream wishes, even just in your head.
Mine might be finally learning to play the guitar properly. That's a dream wish.
Nice. Okay, last one we flagged was straightforward. They used it for the album title. Straightforward just means direct, simple, easy to understand, no complications. Like, the recipe was surprisingly straightforward.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Okay, try describing something you find straightforward. Maybe making coffee.
Making instant coffee is pretty straightforward. Straightforward. Okay, these are all genuinely useful, everyday phrases you can start using.
Definitely worth practicing.
Now, let's just quickly revisit those broader reactions to Kimmel's style again, just for a moment.
Okay. Yeah, one point that often comes up with celebrity interviews is this idea of maybe falling back on easy or predictable questions.
Like lazy fallbacks.
Kind of. And some felt Kimmel's repeated use of that Korean phrase maybe fit that mold, like it didn't really lead anywhere new.
Right. So while the first attempt at language might seem nice, the repetition could feel more like a running gag for the host rather than actually learning more about BLACKPINK.
That was a view some people shared, yeah. And another angle people discussed was the question about the training academy, leaving academics behind.
The getting rid of history and math comment.
Exactly. Some wondered if that framing, maybe unintentionally, played into stereotypes or didn't acknowledge the other skills they likely develop. You know, discipline, languages, teamwork.
It's a complex thing, the K-pop system. It was also pointed out that the interview maybe focused more on past stuff, like Coachella. Instead of maybe digging into the album more, or their chart success right then, or even their Netflix doc that was out around that time.
Yeah, focusing more on the now. And some fans did suggest that maybe more U.S. media training could help K-pop groups navigate these specific talk show formats better. Learning to give slightly longer, more anecdotal answers that hosts often look for.
That's a fair point about different media cultures. But it's also really crucial to say it's not like the members didn't do well.
No, absolutely not.
As other fans pointed out, you see them in interviews with, say, Zach Sang or Zane Lowe, where the questions are maybe more tailored or in-depth.
Yeah.
And they're super engaging, share great stories, show their personalities. So a lot depends on the interviewer, too.
Definitely. The interviewer really shapes the space for the conversation.
Okay, let's start to wrap this up. So in this deep dive, we've looked closely at BLACKPINK on Jimmy Kimmel Live back in October 2020. We saw that great Lovesick Girls performance.
Vibrant.
Got some cool insights into their lives, the BLACKPINK fandom, K-pop training. We talked about the mixed reactions to the interview itself and picked out some really handy English phrases.
And for you listening, especially if English learning is your goal, watching interviews like this, it's gold. Seriously, you hear real, natural English being used.
Yeah.
You get pronunciation, rhythm, common phrases like the ones we practice, all in a context that's actually fun and interesting. So definitely worth checking out clips of this and other interviews they've done.
Totally agree. And as a final thought, it really makes you consider the whole tricky business of cross-cultural interviews in media today. What do you think really makes for a great, insightful, respectful chat with a global star?
That's a good question to ponder. Definitely something for you all to think about.